All righty. Let's get going here. By rocking and rolling, I'm calling this Turncoat Tuesday here on the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast. This is the official People versus Live Golf Tour. We're going to put everybody on trial tonight. I've got a special guest coming in. First of all, I want to say, I know this is just a silly old podcast, but everything we're going to say is for entertainment purposes. And the opinions of the two speaking heads on this podcast does not reflect any of the places that they are currently working. Now, my guest today is an avid golfer. I will say he is an above average singer, a guy that is everything Powell Panthers, Tennessee Vols, Chattanooga Mocs, and Boston Celtics, and Fred Couples. Current practicing attorney, and most importantly, a man that stands on his opinions just for spite. Please welcome in a man that I was playing, known for over 25 years. I have played dollar with him before I hit puberty. My good friend, and like I said, known him forever, Preston Hawkins. And I need to unmute you here, and you should be able to hit some button, and we'll get going here. Now, I've personally asked Preston about a month ago to come on and discuss this specific. I want to say right out of the gate, I'm obviously all for people going out and making their own money. First of all, let's just get started here. Preston Hawkins, how are you doing? Long time no talk.
AP. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Long time no talk. Like I said, been friends for probably 30 years. I'm 39. I've known you since I was about 12 years old, I would say. Played a lot of golf together in my teenage years. Whenever you were post undergrad, let's say post undergrad, pre-practicing lawyer. Let's say that. Played a lot of golf with him in those times. So I brought Preston on just to give more of a legal aspect, or I wanted to bounce questions off Preston and give me what he would say, not legal advice, but what he'd say is legal opinion on certain things and what we got going forward here with the PGA Tour. Like I said, Turncoat Tuesday, name 6 more players moving. That moves a total of 62 players that either signed or played in a Live Tour event as of today on August the 29th, 8th, whatever the day is. So here on the turn tonight, Preston, let's dive in. I want to first say nothing against anyone ever trying to go out and make as much money as possible doing what they do. That's great. We're going to dive into what the PGA Tour has done correct, what they've done wrong, we feel, over the years, and this whole live dynamic. But I have a feeling we're probably going to be pretty one-sided on this argument when it comes to our opinions on certain subjects. But first thing, we're about, I think we started hearing rumors about this time last year about a new tour coming out, Greg Norman being the host. Preston, what were your first thoughts on it? Was it just like another Greg Norman joke to you? What's your thoughts on that, first of all, coming out of the gate? But before we get into the law stuff, legal stuff, what was your thoughts on the original tour? Because, I mean, look, for us here at the Turn, we thought it was kind of a joke.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because in doing just a little bit of research on it today, knowing that I was going to come on your podcast, I actually remembered seeing articles about from like 2020, even early 2020. I'm talking about like near the beginning of the pandemic, where they were talking about this. They were calling it the SGL, the Super Golf League. And, even then the commissioner of the PGA Tour was pretty emphatic that people who would leave the tour for this proposed Super Golf League would run the risk of suspension and or, a lifetime ban even. So, there's been a lot of talk about it for a while. I didn't think that it would make a lot of sense for people to get on board with it. But then, when you started seeing the money that was being involved, regardless of where it was coming from, that's just a lot of money. And people are going to make decisions, based on, finances, regardless of why they say they're actually doing it. At the end of the day, we know why, Harold Varner and Pat Perez are no longer on the PGA Tour. At least they've been honest enough to say that.
Yeah, and David Faraday while he's talking. Right, that's the three. They're probably the only three people that said anything about it. I think maybe Bryson mentioned that with all the upfront money, he's going to be able to do some stuff for junior golf and his area where he was raised, and maybe something top golf related, but for kids and learning, and like a learning center, stuff like that. So yeah, I agree with that.
Sure.
I want to get off. I want to start with like what you said at the beginning here. Let's talk about. I mean, there's just so many levels that we could discuss here. I want to start out with, okay, Greg Norman's CEO, right, or one of the head honchos, the leading tip of the sword, as we would say.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this before, I think, with Greg. I mean, World Golf Championship was his idea. And lack of a better term, they got some fine. I feel like possibly a partnership was bound. We really don't know what happened behind closed doors, while the PGA kind of took over managing that or custodian that aspect. That was originally his dream years and years ago. But I want to say something here, and this is the first shot over the bow right here. Greg Norman, great golfer, we can say great venture capitalist. He's made millions upon millions of dollars over his lifetime. But I'll say this, and I will challenge anybody to prove me wrong, because I think I'm right on this. Name one company that he has ran and been the face of and led it, and while he was working there or at the helm of it, made a profit. I don't think that company exists. And I hope somebody can prove me wrong on that, because we know he's made, he started, hundreds of, or who knows, tens of, maybe even hundreds of companies in his lifetime, and he's made tons of money off of it. But I don't believe that he has ever made any money while he was running the company which he was promoting. Is that a good opinion fact there, Preston?
Well, I'm not 100% sure about his. I mean, I know that he's made a lot of money. He had a big yacht. But at the same point in time, it is my understanding that, a lot of the way he made money is that he sold companies for a lot of money, and then people took over those companies and made more money out of them. I don't even know that he still has a significant cut out of like the shark logo stuff anymore. I don't know. Of course, you don't really see many people wearing that stuff, anymore either, especially now. But, I can't really comment on, whether or not he's made a lot of money for his companies or not, but, he certainly hasn't made a lot of friends. A lot of people have said, even guys that are of his generation, people like, Faldo and Couples, apparently Freddie just said a few weeks ago that, nobody's liked the guy for 25 years. And, Freddie is not the kind of guy that gets way out over his skis when it comes to public relations stuff. He's had his own issues. So for him to say something like that, he must feel really strongly about Norman, and I think a lot of other people in his generation do as well. I know for a fact that Tiger literally has nothing to do with Norman. I mean, they used to live a mile down the beach from one another, and Norman, I think, even made some effort, and Tiger was just having none of it. So clearly, there's an issue there with Mr. Norman.
Yeah, I agree. We don't know what that issue is, but like I said, popularity is, I know he's 67 years old, but let's be honest, we haven't heard about him up until this documentary came out a year ago, whatever. So it started out with him, then Phil makes this thing, which we all knew it was happening, and finally he did it. And later on that year, and it just happenstance, we had one of the Golf Digest guys on the podcast the week that DJ announced, I believe, and that's when we discussed for the first time, we're out of the laughing stage of this whole lift golf. This is a serious threat at this point. And there was a trickle down effect, Brooks, you had Answer, and then so on and so forth. We can talk about the product later that they already have, but moving into that, we had a handful of, there's two types of golfers now that are that have signed with the Live Tour. Well, I say two types of golfers with the PGA Tour involvement that they have signed. This is the first legal question I'm going to get to you on. We had several of them that had formally withdrew their membership, and we thought originally that was to possibly escape litigation against them. from holding a PGA membership card since they were denied the right to play in a tournament, and they did. And then you had it was basically half and half. And I've got a list of guys that have and have not, withdrew the membership. From your opinion, legally, is there any difference between someone that withdrew their membership and somebody that did not withdraw their membership? And I want to say that, and I've got a backup question to that after you answer that.
Well, a lot of people have been, when this first started, this issue started popping up, there were a few articles here and there that seemed to try to be making the point, contrasting, whether or not the live golfers had a legitimate cause of action against the PGA Tour. And a lot of people were looking at it as in an employment law context, which I don't really think is the right context, because everybody should understand that these people who have PGA Tour membership cards, they are not PGA Tour employees. I mean, they're not getting a W-2 from the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour is a nonprofit corporation. So, all of their money, gets spread out, other than, what they pay people within the organization to actually run it. But at the same point in time, these are independent contractors. But what people fail to realize is, the independent contracting gives them the ability to play where they want to play and when they want to play, but they can't play on the PGA Tour, except for certain circumstances. And the idea is to become a member of the PGA Tour, because that's when you have privileges to enter events that you otherwise qualify for. But just like any other membership, it can be taken away if you break the rules. I mean, I'm a member at Holston Hills Country Club here in Knoxville. And, as long as I do the things that I'm supposed to do, pay my dues, don't, go in and smack the club pro across the face, I don't have to worry about getting kicked out. But once I do something stupid like that and break a rule, I'm at jeopardy of being kicked out. And that's exactly, what's happened with these live golfers. I mean, they signed an agreement, a membership agreement. And when, they knew what the consequences would be if they went out and played a tournament in contrast with the PGA Tour. And, one of the things you hear, AP, and I think that the PGA Tour, it's really an argument that these live apologists make, is like, well, they let other people play in the Saudi Invitational and stuff like that. What about that? Well, you don't get to play in that as a PGA Tour member unless you had played 15, like a minimum full schedule of events. And then you could play in up to 3 of those other type of events. But it was only if you got permission. And apparently the PGA Tour will deny permission if you don't otherwise have the requisite number of tournaments. So, the idea that they let people play in the Saudi Invitational, which was, I think, a tournament on the European Tour, I don't know what it's called now, the DP Tour or something. It's a red herring.
Okay. So once so say I'm Andrew Poor. I'm out here. I'm 25 years old, or 24 years old. I just graduated college, and Live Tour comes knocking on my door. I've got like 4 events that I'm in on the PGA Tour, but I'm not a member. Okay. I just graduated college. Live Tour comes to, hey, I'll give you $5 million right now to play in 1 year. And I take that. At that point, I've never been a PGA member. Would that case be completely different than, say, a Dustin Johnson's relationship with legally, or no?
I'm not sure. I mean, like any other membership organization, you and I both want to play Augusta National, but we're not members there. And even if we had enough money to join, they wouldn't have to make us members just because we had enough money to join. And I think that, for the same reason that they can keep or ban Dustin Johnson, who is a member, I think they can, decline to allow anybody that's been in a competing league like that membership. Now, that is where you're going to potentially have a more of a closer legal issue. And I don't think that it's really a close issue in this employer independent contract employment law style issue. I think it's more of an issue in an antitrust context, because, those people would be able to take the position that the PGA Tour is in essence exercising a monopoly on their, ability to compete. And they're punishing people who are not actually members of their organization. And because of that, I think it might actually be a closer case for the circumstance that you mentioned, because that wouldn't be a situation where a person has actually knowingly broken a rule that they signed a membership agreement not to break.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if I've never been a member, I have not seen any documentation saying I cannot play in this tournament. Right.
Right.
Other than let's say behind the scenes, a guy calls and says, "Hey man, if you play in that, they ain't gonna let you." And that's when we're talking about that's pretty legally, right?
Well, it is, but at the same point in time, AP, I think that, not to get too far down the road, but I think, especially after what happened today, with Cameron Smith going to the LIV. I mean, I think the writing is already kind of on the wall. When they're having this players, only meeting. It wasn't all players. I mean, apparently it was the big dogs that are still on the tour plus Tiger. There is going to have to be a reckoning and some type of an accommodation made. I mean, I think it's fine for the PGA Tour at this point to say, "Hey, we're not going to let former members that leave for live ever come back." But I think that eventually there will probably have to become a way. I mean, fascinating other question going to be like, will the Masters let Mickelson and DJ play? Or Patrick Reed or Sergio. I mean, if they take the position that LIV golfers aren't going to be allowed to play in the Masters, they're cutting quite a few former champions out, at least 4 that off the top of my head. And I don't think that many people would be, disappointed to not see Patrick Reed and Sergio get to tee it up anymore, but some people would. But that's a little far afield of the question you were asking. But I think that eventually there will be a motivation for the PGA Tour to try to want to not come down too hard on the young kids that took the money that weren't even PGA Tour members. Like wasn't the kid that just won the U.S. Amateur last year, took the live money?
Yeah, I think there was 3 amateurs in the original field. I don't know how many is active now because after the first turn, after the first round in Oregon, I haven't watched any live. And we can let's go on to the product now. To me,
I'm doing you one better because I've not watched a second of it.
Well,
hope they don't need my eyes on it to make money because they never will.
Right, and I said that we're going to be on one side of this, and that's because like Preston and myself, we are huge traditionalists when it comes to old. I mean, I can speak for Preston. I know 100%. He gets as geeked up about a Donald Ross course as I do. Anything around the early 1900 design that has anything to do with golf, he's geeked up about it big time. So, traditionalists in that. Let's go on to the majors now. Let's finish up with this. Yeah, because I think that would be a huge strategy, and it might have been a strategy if they went after these college kids. Now, there's going to be some stuff in there now with this PGA Tour University that isn't exactly they get rights, but they don't sign anything to get those rights until they sign something. So I could see that's going to become. I see that as the biggest contender with legality going forward. I honestly, I stand with you what you say on, I signed this piece of paper as a contractor knowingly that I had to do this and this to maintain my membership, and if I fail to do that, therefore I'm up to here as suspension, and that's what they have now come. The last hole that they play on the Live Tour, they have a 2-year ban from that point forward. That's what's been mentioned as of now. Who knows what the future holds? I will say this.
Well, I agree with you, AP, and that's one thing that I was going to say. I think the safest thing that either of us could say tonight is that nobody truly knows what is going to happen 2 years, 3 years down the road. I mean, there's so many different moving parts to this, and we just don't know. Like, I'll put it to you like this. If the PGA Tour is ultimately going to win this battle, they're probably going to need the Masters and the USGA and the RNA and the PGA of America to pick a side and to pick their side. And there's already some reason to think that at least the RNA might not be, because there was an article out today that was saying that based upon the current language that they just put out that the door might be open for live European golfers to play in the Ryder Cup. Well, I mean, I'd have a huge problem with that. If I was a PGA Tour player, even though the PGA Tour doesn't administrate the Ryder Cup, the PGA of America does. If I'm PGA of America, I mean, I wouldn't want those people, I wouldn't want to have a competitive disadvantage, but may very well be.
Well, it's funny you say that. I think the cat's already been kind of whispered out of the bag with Davis Love's theory as, we just won't play. And I mean,
I don't think he wants those people in his locker room.
No.
Won't be captain's picks.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk four majors. You just mentioned Master, Augusta National, USGA, RNA, PGA of America. Now, let's be honest. Three of those four are nonprofit, heavily funded by the PGA Tour. However, we know for a fact that nobody's going to go into a backdoor meeting and push the Augusta National board around. And I would think that, because this has happened before. I mean, you remember the Seve Ballesteros situation? He only played in like 2 tournaments in '86, and that was because he refused to play in the 13 tournament minimum that the PGA Tour was making you do then. And so he wasn't, and back then they really didn't have the invitational style PGA events. It was all qualifying and membership only. Like right now, the Memorial and Arnold Palmer invitation, there's 3 or 4 more. So this has kind of happened before with like people losing their membership because not following through on certain things. So I have a very hard time thinking that board is ever going to get together and say, I think it's like 6 or 7. Honestly, we know Charles Schwartzel, Sergio, Reed, DJ, and probably several more. We pretty much, I think we can go ahead and see those. They're going to play. I'm about 97% sure on that. That's about as sure as you can get on that. Now, if we get down into the RNA and PGA or USGA, which are similar outfits, one in Europe, one here. Like you said, the RNA, I think with the USGA as well, I just don't see it where I know they've already said that we will look into that's not necessarily, they didn't shut that door in the presser they had about them not playing, but I don't see them holding out to somebody. I think the issue is, and which I don't understand how this is legal, how the Live Tour is not getting ranking points when they tee it up. I would think any tournament out there that has a strong enough feel to adhere world ranking points should be privy to those world ranking points. And they're somehow stopping that. I don't get that. Do you?
Well, I mean, I think that the official world golf rankings, I think that they're, I think that it's a private organization. Yeah, I think they're ruled by the rules within their corporation, and they're taking a stance, in solidarity with the European Tour and the PGA Tour. And I guess if these people want to get world ranking points, they can go play in Asia right now. I don't think they're welcome anywhere else. I hear what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think it's one of those things where we just don't know. I mean, they're not counting, any of this stuff yet. And I think you can make a legitimate argument that maybe they shouldn't, based upon, the format. I mean, these people are playing, they're not playing full tournaments. They're playing 54 holes. Some of these are team events. I mean, I don't even know if I don't really know much about what they're doing, AP, other than it seems kind of like a circus. The music and shotgun starts and all this other stuff. I mean, it just seems ridiculous. I just wonder how sustainable it is, because my thought process is like, I haven't even had a desire to watch it. Because if it's a shotgun start, do the leaders even play together in the final round? Do they even play on the same hole, or are they like, is one starting on 11 and one's on 18 and they're going around the course at the same time and nobody knows? It just doesn't sound all that interesting, really.
Yeah, I just went to the Tour Championship though, 72-hole event, 30 players, no cut, last place guaranteed $500,000.
Sure.
And the guy that I know finished 29th and moved up 2 spots in the world rankings. Okay.
I get it.
And that was a strong field, I've got buddies at work that are like PJ Tour's done, yada yada yada. I mean, let's look face facts. They've got with the addition today, they've only got 3 players in the top 25 in the world, maybe 4. I can't remember I know Joaquin's, Cam Smith, DJ, and I know part of that reason is that they have not been getting rankings over the last few months. So their rankings have obviously dropped, but still, the reason I brought up the rankings at all was that part of what we've come to realize is that a big strategy or a big plus to being a professional golfer is you get inside that top 50, man. And the words of Kevin Kisner, it's hard to get out of it because you're playing in events that other people aren't allowed to come to, which at the time there was 4 World Golf Championships. They're down, they don't even exist anymore. I think there's 1 because the Mexico Open is no longer a World Golf Championship. FedEx St. Jude's is no longer. The Bridgestone's gone. So the World Golf Match Play is it, and I don't even think that's a World Golf. They might still call it that. I can't remember, but anyway, but still, if you're in the top 64 in the world, you get invited to that.
Yep.
So that is the 150 thing. 150, the top 50 gets you in all 4 majors. It gets you in the CJ Cup. It gets you in the Zozo Championship. Now they just released this new thing that the top 30, if you make it to the Tour Championship, you get to play in the Tournament Champions in Hawaii. I mean, so if you get in that kind of elite status, upper tier, it's hard. And Kevin Kisner's words, not mine, it's almost impossible to get out without a complete meltdown year. So you're getting these huge points and you're playing in 8 tournaments other people aren't allowed or can't even get invited to. And so that's whenever I texted you when they announced Tringali Sunday morning, he's 53rd in the rankings. I said, terrible move for him because we know going forward that at least in the next 24 months, these guys in the top 50 are going to be making probably triple what they made this year. I can see with this new exhibition stuff. And let's be honest, that all got brought up because now we have competition.
Yeah.
So
it's true. I mean, as much as I hate what Mickelson and them have done, in terms, I mean, it does, it does prove that they had a point about the fact that there's, and I think it's great what they're doing. I mean, you graduate from the Korn Ferry and you get $500,000 and you can have it up front. I mean, come on. I mean, that has got to be one of the best things in the world for those kids that are coming off the Korn Ferry and they're not going to have to get out there and worry about having to make cuts right away, when they're trying to find their way and all that other stuff. So I think that part of it is great. And, it is kind of an acknowledgement that they had a point. Mickelson and them did have a point. They just went about it the wrong way. Some would say.
Mick, I don't know. I thought it was a perfect storm for Mickelson, honestly. Made that comment. The book was coming out. And what we all thought was actually true. So, about him, but anyway, I think a perfect storm with that. And, but he did have a point, and I think his points were probably raised several times fell on deaf ears. I mean, I think they probably had some of this stuff in the works for a while, but they never were going to get off the page. I mean, they even said that we've been working on this stuff for a few years with this new Tiger Woods League thing they're doing with Rory. But let's be honest, the reason they did that is because during COVID, they put a couple exhibitions and made millions of dollars and that's why they said 2 years. Just think about it, it's 2022 and 2020 they did 3 exhibition tournaments and made a buttload of money and said, okay, yeah, we've been working on this for 2 years. Yeah, you've been working on it, but it never was going to happen, in my opinion, without this. And I mean, they found $160 million in a weekend. I mean, come on.
I will say this: it really is. It's I don't want to say it's a desperate move by the PGA Tour, but it seems like they needed to do something to try to grab the momentum back because they've lost a lot of good players. you're losing guys that are not necessarily your top end guys, but are super popular. Your Harold Varner III, which, by the way, like, of all of the people that have left, I have the most respect for people like Varner because of basically what he said. I mean, the truth of the matter is, and it's hard to separate from it. And even you said Tringali made a mistake. At the same point in time, Tringali, without having to make a cut now, has probably made generational wealth. And, he never has to make another cut in order to have that money. And, somebody like Varner, when was the last time that Harold Varner III was heard from in any major tournament? I don't know that it's really ever happened. I don't even know how many times he's even played in the Masters, but he took the money today and he said, "I'm taking the money." And this is a financial opportunity. More power to him. If he's willing to stomach where that money comes from, then, maybe he can do some good with it. The people that I have the problem with are the people that knew what the rules were going to be, take the money and say it gives them the chance to not have to play so much golf, and then turn around and sue the PGA Tour because they say they want to play more golf. I have zero respect for people like that.
Yeah, and we know now that they have to do so many press conferences and have to wear certain clothes and have to say certain things. We all know that now.
It won't be long. You wait and see. It will not be long before these people are going to but I would predict within the next year or so, people are going to have to start saying nice things about the Crown Prince and Saudi Arabia, because at the end of the day, it's really important to remember the whole reason for this, AP. I mean, this is a targeted effort by the royal family of Saudi Arabia to try to put themselves into English-speaking polite society. Because most people, think about this and it's like, oh, well, the U.S. government does business with Saudi Arabia, so why is it a problem for these people to take Saudi Arabian money? I was like, well, the one thing is, it's one thing to say that, you need to be allies to the best extent you can geopolitically. And I don't want to get this way off into a political discussion, but at the same point in time, these people are awful people. Women don't get to drive there. They throw gay people off the top of buildings, and they execute teenagers for daring to say anything bad about the Saudi royal family. I mean, I would be executed in Saudi Arabia just for saying this right here. And so, that's why people have had a reaction to a lot of this from some perspective.
I do agree, but I do feel like it's a strategic move for them to drum up more future business for themselves.
No doubt.
I don't want to get really into the political stuff, because I think that the commissioner of the PGA Tour using that as his like opening defense against not going was pretty useless argument for me from a business standpoint. And he kind of turned it that way, which, I mean, let's be honest, everything that they want to put, everything that anybody wants to push in the political realm is going to be hot topics and worst case scenario defenses.
Hey, though, even Mickelson said it. I mean, it was one of the things he got in trouble for saying. He said, those are some scary people over there. But he was like, so what? I'm still taking the money.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get back on the golf here. Okay, 62 people have gone. Asides the the amateurs and some of the internationals that we really don't know about over here that have not much exposure on the PGA Tour, I feel there's like 5-6 players only that have left the PGA Tour that are still have the best golf in front of them, and that's Abe Answer, Neiman, Cameron Smith, Gooch, DeChambeau, and maybe Matt Wolff, and there's probably a couple more, but you got to look at everybody else is more on the downside of their career. And let's be honest, I would say besides DJ, and I'm using this as a TV ratings thing, we got no needle movers here. If you watch a PGA Tour event and anybody can win it, and then you go watch about the 5th weakest field out at Pebble Beach, even though it's at Pebble Beach, the 5th weakest field of the year in the AT&T Pro-Am, and Jordan Spieth is in the final group, the needle moves. the
Sure.
ratings double. When Rory this weekend, even though it's a non-cut event, 30 people, when he's in there, the needle moves, and of course, Big Cat himself, Tiger Woods. Those are the three needle movers, in my opinion. Now we might get more excited with local guys or different stories here in town. That might be a little different, but the needle moves, in my opinion, only with those three golfers, and does not move with any of these golfers. I think we might have kind of started a little bit of a flash here with Cameron Smith, but that has quickly died with the last 3 weeks, especially when they sit there in a press conference and ask him a question point blank, and he looks like a deer on I-75 at 3:00 in the morning. So saying that to say this, the talent is just not even close. One concern I do have is with the majority of internationals leaving this international versus U.S., whether it be Ryder Cup or President Cup, is literally, I mean, this President's Cup is going to be a joke. And I'm not saying that from the standpoint of there's not great international players. I'm just saying you take Abe Answer, Joaquin Needham, Cameron Smith off, and Mark Leishman, who's probably going to be the captain pick too. So you take your 4 players out of your top 12, and you're saying that whenever you were probably a little bit out talented already. So it's take your 2 best players for sure. Cam Smith and Needham's are 2 best players. You take them off, and you're going to compete. No. And Oos Havens is he's a top 30 in the world player.
Will Adam Scott play in it?
I mean, I guess he probably will. I mean, he's in the points. I think he's in it. So
he'll probably be in it. But I mean, you're going to be struggling to figure out who some of these people are.
Yeah, I agree that, and somebody kind of made that comment on another podcast. He said he was a little tipsy when he did it, and kind of said it was just a joke, you just go ahead and pack it. He said they were going to lose 29-0 or something stupid, and of course, some of the internationals got a little heated about that, but he was doing it and laughingly joking. But let's be honest about anybody. I mean, LA Rams right now won the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford goes down. They ain't winning as many games, and he's just one player. So that's just a fact in the team event. So that's just stupid argument we don't even need to get into. But there's the talent dismissal from Live Tour versus PGA that's a non-topic and non-needle mover when it comes to media. I mean, we see it here in the South. Tennessee has been a mediocre, below average football team, but guess what? They still bring the second highest TV ratings, and that's why they play at 3:30 on CBS. Right. It has nothing to do. It's Alabama or Tennessee or nobody in the South when it comes to TV. I'm talking about TV ratings only. I mean, because it's proven, South Carolina goes 10-2 and nobody watches. So,
Spurs up, AP.
Huh?
Spurs up.
Yeah. So, let's see here. Lastly, I think that's about it. Do you got anything else you want to talk about on the live side? I mean,
no, other than to put a capper on it, the changes that the PGA Tour is making for those younger players, I think is going to really make a lot of them still excited to want to be out on the PGA Tour. And, with enough of the backlash that some of those live people have gotten, I think, with the changes the PGA Tour has made, it's still going to be the dominant force in professional golf moving forward. And I hope that, that they can work something out where maybe some of these people can have some grace and come back. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean,
yeah. Okay, I forgot this part. This was my final topic here on the situation. This tour will be around until the royal family gets bored with it. In my opinion, because it will never make money. There's no way it'll make money. Zero chance.
It was gonna lose every dollar from the beginning.
Yeah. So when they get bored with it is whenever and my buddies are saying, well, how much money? They don't need to make any money. They got all the money in the world. I understand they got all the money in the world, but if they don't want to renew if they don't want to say we're doing it next year, then they just don't do it. That's it. And so I think that it'll be around as long as as long as they want to fool with it. And when they don't, it'll be over. And that's probably 24 to 36 months, in my opinion. That's just
what will those people be doing then? Those guys,
they'll be serving a 2-year suspension. It sounds like, but if these guys, getting their checks now, they get their checks now. Unclosing the product is to me too video gamey. Like you told me, you look on there and what, 40, 50, 60,000 people watching it. Give me a break. And like you said, Phil did have a point as far as the changes that they made, right? We thought from the get-go, the one thing that's lost in all this is the player or the viewer was never taken into aspect in any of this. And I know it's really not, it's not about us from the standpoint of who's getting paid, but however, without us, there is, without the tour, there is nothing to watch, but without us, there is no tour because the sponsor money won't be there. So that's a huge argument that we've had. The fan experience has been at times just forgotten. And lastly, we know that the corporate protection laws that PGA Tour has put in place over the years have been just probably one of the dirtiest in any industry out there, from the standpoint that they'll go at zero cost or no expense not paid to save their business, where it's, under the table suspensions. Let's keep PR stuff down. Let's, if you're sponsored by UPS or Visa, you're not allowed to play in a tournament. I mean, give me a break. But they take Visa on them credit card machines when you buy the popcorn and the Coke,
when you buy the merch.
Yeah. When you buy
one thing I should say in closing, AP, especially since you had me on to talk about the legal stuff, just really quickly, I think, the PGA Tour has won in the past on this allegations of being antitrust. I think that it came up in the 90s and they won. And I think it was pretty telling that the people that sued the PGA Tour and sought an injunction, those live golfers that were otherwise qualified for the Tour Championship or for the FedEx Cup playoffs, I should say, they tried to get a judge to let them play. In order to win on that, you have to show the judge or convince the judge that you're likely to win the underlying lawsuit. And that's the only way you're going to be able to get an injunction. And they were not able to do that. And I don't even think it was close. And so, to the extent that these folks are suing the PGA Tour, I think that they're going to lose. And, in the long run, that's not the most important thing, but because you had me on to talk about it, I would keep my money on the PGA Tour in terms of how it's going to handle the legal side of it.
Yeah. And I guess my last thing on the way out is you're talking about the older guys that have talking really bad about Live Golf and Greg Norman and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure that Jack Nicklaus in the 80s tried to unionize the whole PGA Tour and almost didn't they like not show up to the Players Championship and had their own Players Championship like 8 miles down the road or something?
I think that might have happened.
Yeah, but nobody's talking about that right now. Nobody's talking about those greedy guys back then. But it's just funny, the optics of whatever and the political stuff and the sound bites and corporate espionage is very interesting out there. And but yeah, I think, like I said, from the get-go, we're going to be on pretty much one side of this opinion-wise. We pretty line up, I think, a lot legally on this as well. But I hate it that it's happened, but, it's good to be somewhere between 30 and 150 on the average points list every year, because you're making a lot more money now, guys, because these 60-something people have left. And think about if you're a fringe 125 guy, this is the best thing that's ever happened to you.
The guy that I immediately thought of is Peter Malnotti, who's a member at my club and who is like genuinely one of the nicest people in the entire world. This is great for him. I mean, of course, he's better this year. I think he was easily top 125 this year, but there's been several years where he's been like right on the number.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he finished 126 like 2 out of 3 years. But
yeah. So good news for Peter.
Yeah. And they're going to make a lot of money. So
right.
Thank you everybody for listening. Preston Hawkins, thanks for coming on. Old friend, Legal Opinions here. I'm Andrew Putters. This is the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast brought to you by Rotoballer.com. And we'll talk to y'all later.